Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, if you're a sports fan, do you remember the days where you were watching a big game from an online stream that had maybe a 30-second delay, and your friend's SMS message or social media timeline all sent you notifications of those big game events, a goal or an injury or something, all before it appeared on your TV screen? Well, today I've invited my friend Jed, CMO of real-time streaming technology company Phenix, back onto the podcast to discuss their unique OTT technology infrastructure that is allowing for streaming video as close to real-time as possible without sacrificing broadcast quality and scale. And they've also secured a patent on their Syncwatch technology so that everyone consumes the content at the exact same time, regardless of location or connection. And the company is also trusted by Verizon, Racecourse Media Group, and many more. So I want to find out some real-world stories as well from Jed and the kind of work that he's been up to. He's a great guy. I'm really looking forward to getting him back onto the podcast. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Connecticut, where Jed is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show. We last spoke a year ago. I think it was on episode 1284, but welcome back, Jed. Can you remind the listeners of anyone that missed our last conversation with a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. How could you have missed that? Come on. So yes, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at a company called Phenix Real-Time Solutions. And we are a real-time streaming video platform. And what that basically means is that if you can imagine watching a football match and hearing your friends down the hall cheering about a goal that you haven't yet seen because of the delay or the latency in the stream, that's one of the things that we do away with. So we stream content in real time. We stream it at scale so we can reach millions of people at the same time. And we also stream the content in sync across all devices. So everyone that watches a match is watching it at the same time.
Yeah, and it is a big problem that you're solving there. And I think in our last conversation, we were talking about my experience with Amazon Prime, where they have some Premier League games, and
right.
the goals were coming through on my phone and watch before I was actually watching them on the TV. There's like a minute delay there.
Oh my goodness, yes, it's terrible. It's look, I mean, this is what most people have been used to for years and years. They watch it, and it's just sort of been accepted. But there's no need to accept it anymore because it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be. You should be able to watch the match as though you're at the stadium, and at the same time, it's as it's happening at the stadium, and that's what we do.
And another thing that's changed since we last spoke, which was over a year ago now, was I now ask my guests to share their origin story in a Marvel action hero kind of way. So I've got to ask, where did your passion for tech came from, and how did that world of technology and sport collide to put you on this path you're on today?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wasn't really a tech guy early on in my career, but I ended up working at an agency after I left the NFL that got into mobile technologies in I think it was about 2006. So I started feeling my way through the tech world. Early days of mobile, if you remember, ringtones and WAP sites and all this other crazy stuff that was going on in mobile. And I just sort of, from there on, I just sort of took a liking to what was happening in the worlds of technology and tried to, stay up and fresh, as what, the new things that are happening. So, I've been in the OTT space for a little while, and I've been with Phenix now 5 years, and I've seen a tremendous amount of growth just in the streaming world, from when we first started and where things are now. And first of all, the amount of companies that are streaming content, both, live content and of course, more on-demand content like the Netflixes of the world. And you mentioned Amazon Prime, but a lot of these companies are starting to get into sports as well. So it is definitely the future. People are cutting their cord, and slowly but surely, people are moving more into the digital space to consume their content. So we'll see what happens over the next 5 years, but I think it's only going to increase.
I completely agree with you, and also since we last spoke, I remember reading that you secured this patent on your Syncwatch technology. So essentially, everyone can consume the content at the exact same time, regardless of their location or their connection. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because you guys make it sound incredibly easy, but of course, from a technical aspect, I know the blood, sweat, and tears that goes on behind the scenes there to make that happen.
Yeah, well, I kudos to our engineers and our tech ops teams, because they are really the geniuses of the company. But yes, you're right. I mean, we do have a patent issued where we are able to synchronize the stream across any device. So, laptop, mobile device, game console, connected TV, you name it. And so you'd be able to watch, with your friends, no matter where they are, in real time and at the same time. So as you can imagine, that really leads to a lot of interactive type features where you can have these sort of watch party games where you and a bunch of your friends can watch the game at the same time. You can text and chat with your friends all while you're watching the game in real time. So, we're pretty proud of the technology. It was a challenge to come up with, but I put nothing past our team. They're really quite incredible.
And it is incredibly cool what you've created here, because I think a lot of people listening will have been watching a game and had a text message from their phone saying, "What a great goal." And you're like, "Hey, this nothing happened here yet."
Right. Wait a second. Don't spoil it. You just spoiled it for me. I haven't seen it yet.
So through your custom-built applications, Phenix is specifically endeavoring to make adoption of the platform as easy as possible too. And that's often the biggest battle, especially, I know your target audience, whether you're betting or in a fan group or just better broadcasts overall. But do you have any examples of sporting events where you've used your tech to bring that event to life?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one example is close to home. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Cheltenham Festival, which is one of the biggest weeks of horse racing during the year. So we work with our partners, Stats Perform and Racecourse Media Group, who's the rights holder. And we were able to deliver a new streaming solution for them. Last year was the first year that we streamed the Cheltenham Festival, during the pandemic. So there was nobody in the crowd, nobody in the audience, unfortunately. But we were able to stream. We actually broke records pretty much every day of the week, where we kept streaming to more and more people every day until we finally topped out at about 500,000 concurrent users at the same time streaming, and they were all streaming at about, I don't know, less than half a second, something like 400 milliseconds. So it was really one of the most successful weeks for our company, and it was really it was a game changer for Racecourse Media Group and Stats Perform. They had never seen that number. Nobody, and still to this day, nobody has streamed to 500,000 or more while maintaining that same half-second latency. So we're very, very proud of that that time.
And for our international listeners, the Cheltenham Festival is a huge, huge event here in the UK with over 250,000 people attending. I'm curious, were you able to go as part of that?
No, unfortunately, nobody could go. There was nobody there. It's very funny. I mean, we have some video. I've got video from the 2019 festival where there were crowds. It was very crowded, and it was great. It was normal, if you will. And then last year, where it was just absolutely empty. I mean, you looked at the stands and they were just completely barren. And, the horses are racing, and it was just so bizarre, just to watch them racing down the track with nobody cheering. It's just incredible. But hopefully in March of 2022, we'll get back to having the fans in the stadium. We'll be working on streaming it again for Stats and RMG. So we're looking forward to that, to setting even more records next year.
And the world has changed so much in the short time since we last spoke. And you've just provided a great example there of before and after. So I'm curious, how much of what you do has evolved over the last 18 months? Because I would imagine that streaming has become more important than ever.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I mean it's terrible to say that the pandemic has been good for our business, which you never want to say because so many people have died, which is just absolutely awful. But from a pure business standpoint, you're right. I mean, streaming has taken front and center, and not only streaming, but I think people through the use of all the Zoom calls and Teams and Hangouts, all the video conferencing calls that everybody's been taking, they've actually experienced real-time streaming, whether they realize it or not, because those technologies were built on the same protocol that we use for our streaming. The difference is that we built our technology from the ground up so we could scale to hundreds or millions of users, where video conferencing tools aren't able to do that. So it really has changed quite a bit over the last year and a half or so.
It really has. And if I look at the world of tech conferences and things, obviously I was traveling all around the world to cover and attend these conferences, but they went virtual. And I think now there's a place for them, and I think there's almost room for a hybrid approach to these, where some people attend and some people watch online, and actually increase the audience size of these. But I'm curious, what trends or tech trends are you beginning to see take shape?
Well, you make a good point on the conferences. In fact, there's one upcoming in London called the Sports Pro OTT Summit, which is just that. It is 2 days of in-person and 2 days of virtual. So you're right. I mean, I think that there is a mix, but listen, I mean, I have to say I'm a little old school when it comes to, I still like having that in-person connection and that energy when you meet somebody, when you have a meeting with somebody across the table and you see their expression and you can address certain things right away without having, any barriers. So I'm hopeful that, things will start to open up more and more, and we'll be able to kind of go back to, at least to some extent. Yeah. I don't think it'll ever be exactly like it was, because I think what we've learned that we could survive doing a lot of Zoom and virtual calls, but there really is nothing to replace that in-person energy that you get when you have that meeting.
Absolutely, 100% with you on that. And also, I think we kind of miss those moments of serendipity and those happy accidents where you're on a show floor and somebody you're never going to speak to or bump into in normal life. Suddenly you find yourselves together in a line to a keynote or something, and you strike up a friendship within 10, 15 minutes and learn a few things from each other. That's what we're missing, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that, that sort of water cooler effect of I actually just read something recently where they were saying that, people working in an office, taking a break every now and then is actually healthy. It makes you more productive because you can step out of your office and you can, chat with your colleagues and you can just kind of relax and talk about something that may not be so pressing, and just, take your mind off of things for a couple minutes and have that, hey, did you see that show last night? And you can talk about it, and that, that sort of camaraderie that you miss from that in-person element.
I completely agree again. And if we look at how much the world has changed in the time since we last spoke, and we can safely predict it's going to continue to evolve and change over the next 12 months as well. What's next for Phenix? I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything you can share about the road ahead?
Well, we've certainly been working diligently on not only improving but adding features to our technology. For instance, we've been doing some very cool multi-camera features for the NBA and for the NHL through our client Verizon Media, where you're able to watch a game from up to 7 different camera angles. All those camera angles are in sync, and they're all in real time. And we actually even added a replay function to that. So those are things that we're working on. We've added a advertising element, because we know some of the companies we talk to are in the broadcasting space, and they're always looking at ways to monetize their business. So we've added real-time ad insertion to our technology. So now you can offer ways to stream. If you're a broadcaster, for instance, and you want to stream a game, you can have advertising interspersed within the stream, so you can generate some revenue. So I think it's just we're constantly trying to fine tune, upgrade, improve, add features to our technology to keep one step ahead of everybody else.
Well, since we last spoke, there's another thing that I've added to the podcast. I'm going to have a bit of fun with you now. We began the podcast with your origin story. We'll put you on this path. I'm now going to ask you, what was the soundtrack to that origin story? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has inspired you throughout your career, or maybe just helps you get your head in the zone here in 2021? Is there a song and story you can share with us? And we'll add that song to our Spotify playlist.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I will say this, I am a huge fan of the band Steely Dan. So I listen to a lot of their music, and, when I just have a moment, I sort of listen to a lot of different Steely Dan music. So I would say, anything from them is great. I actually played in a couple of bands in college, and we played a few Steely Dan tracks. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I would say that's the song track of my life. Oh
man, is there a particular song, one that you remember playing?
Yes, there's a song called "Your Gold Teeth 2."
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a jazzy sort of. It's a really cool track, but it's just one of my favorites of all time.
Awesome. Well, I'll get that on the Spotify playlist. And for
cool.
anyone, any sports fans or anybody wanting to find out more information about Phenix, what's the best way of finding you online and contacting your team if they've got any questions?
Oh, please do. Find us on the web. Phenix, that's Phenix RTS, which stands for real-time solution.com. PhenixRTS.com. No O in the Phoenix.
Oh, I love it. Well, if ever you're in the UK, we'll have to go to, I don't know, the Cheltenham Festival or a soccer game. And equally, if I'm in a tech conference, I'd maybe see you in the US, or maybe check out a team where you are and we can catch a game together. But I'm not sure. I think you're in Connecticut. Is that right?
Indeed. Yes. I'm about an hour outside of New York City.
I was going to say, who are your local teams there?
We have no local teams. I root for all my New York teams where I grew up. So yes.
Well, I mean, there's a can of worms on its own. Are you a Mets or Yankees guy?
Oh, God.
I'm a Giants or Jets?
I actually grew up minutes from what used to be Shea Stadium, which is now Citi Field. So I'm a Mets and a Jets fan, and it's torture because they both stink.
As I was telling you before we started recording, as a long-suffering Derby County fan,
goodness,
I think it's our parents. They hand it down to us.
Yes, I blame my parents. I will absolutely do that. I take no blame.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on the podcast. We'll stay in touch and hopefully get you back on next year. But thanks again.
Thank you, Neil.
Wow, what a great story. And Jed has such an illustrious career as well in this space. He's held executive marketing positions at OTT Studios, NFL, Sony Music Entertainment, and so many more. But I just love the problems that he's solving here, and I've experienced them firsthand. And I'm sure a few of you listening have too. But then it's not just about ensuring that we all watch that game at the same time and there's not a 10, 20, 30 second delay from somebody watching it upstairs or somebody or one of your friends watching on another device in another part of the world. I also love how they're creating more interactive fan experiences. So if you've got any thoughts on today's podcast about real-time streaming technology, maybe you've got a few stories of big games where the stream was behind and it maybe ruined your experience. I'm sure you've got a story. Whatever it is, please keep them coming in. And you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So a big thank you to Jed, as always, for coming on the podcast. Always good value. And an even better thank you to each and every one of you for tuning into this podcast and being a part of the show by emailing in and speaking with me directly too. But that's it for today. So until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.